Those insects die of a blood infection when they eat that corn.
And they explode.
They don't explode. Their cells explode inside them, but they just die. So, yeah, telling you that, you're like, oh shit, I don't want to eat that. But it simply doesn't happen to us because we do not have alkaline midguts. No reaction takes place. Our body knows no difference.
All right, welcome to Careers Over Beers podcast. I'm the host, Jesse Krause, and today I have a friend. Welcome. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us who you are.
I'm VenJohn, and I'm a crop consultant.
Crop consultant.
Yes.
Meaning?
So as a crop consultant, I work for several different farmers as their personal agronomist. So what a lot of that entails is I scout their fields once a week during the growing season, and I'm looking for weeds, insects, diseases. I'm making chemical recommendations to alleviate any concerns that we have there, if there are any. I'm also looking for any nutrient deficiencies on the plants, any abiotic issues that could be going on. I'm probing the soil for moisture and making irrigation schedules for them. The overall goal is to help the farmer be as profitable as possible.
Very cool. So you're a position that assists farmers, basically.
Yes.
That's the basics of it, anyways.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. Well, cheers, sir. Let's go ahead and crack into one of these. What are we drinking here?
I brought you some spotted cow.
Spotted cow.
Yep.
What the hell is that?
So you can only buy it in Wisconsin, and I have a sister that lives up there. So
Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Sister lives up there, and
yep. So every time we go up to visit, we usually bootleg a couple cases back. So
spotted cow, and it's from New Glarus Brewing Company.
New Glarus Brewing Company.
Brewing Company. Wisconsin.
Yes.
Nice. All right, let's give it a shot, man.
Yep. Cheers.
Cheers. Nice, light lager.
Yeah.
Delicious, honestly.
Yeah.
Really good.
I love it.
This is my style of beer, because usually I'm drinking a lot of them in a row. And I do enjoy a good craft beer. I enjoy a good IPA, a good stout, porter. But, I mean, this right here, you can pound a lot of these back, it feels like.
Yeah. I feel like it's a mix between an amber and a light beer.
An amber and a light beer. Yeah, that's good. That's a good description of it.
Yep.
Every drop of Wisconsin's original farmhouse ale is artisan brewed and bottled. Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
I'm not going to read that whole description. Yeah, very good beer. So you got introduced this from your sister up there in Wisconsin?
Yes, sir.
Cool. Alrighty, so you kind of told us what you do.
Yep.
How in the world did you ever find out that there was a position like that?
So I grew up on a farm, and I was always interested in agriculture. I knew I wanted to do something in that. I think what drew me to ag the most is the community in the ag world. There's a lot of really good, nice, hardworking people in the ag community, and I think the quality of your job's got a lot to do with the quality of the people you're working with and how happy you're going to be in your job. Mm-hmm. So I work with a lot of great people. I've met a few outliers, sure, in the years I've been working, but
a few not very good people.
Sure. But for the most part, yeah, there's a lot of really good people that I work with, and it's really satisfying to help really good people.
So you grew up in agriculture community, right?
Yep.
And you just wanted to stay that route your whole life because you thought the people were good. Is that the main reason, or did you want to work in ag just because you enjoyed?
I loved farming.
Mm-hmm.
Being in a tractor growing up, and I was driving tractors since I was like 10 years old, and
it's been your world your whole life.
Yeah.
So what made you go the route you took rather than being an actual farmer?
So my dad farmed, but he didn't farm enough to make a living, and so I had to look at some other options. And I had a neighbor that was a crop consultant when I was growing up, and I always thought his job was kind of cool. And I did some job shadows. And
why did you think it was cool?
Because you're walking out in those fields and you're looking at some really detailed stuff on, like look at this little weed that's just sprouting. It's like you wouldn't really notice it, not being educated about it. So I just thought it was really cool.
So they're looking at, you now too, I guess. You're looking at every little weed that pops out in a crop?
Yeah, like if there's a weed like not even an inch tall, I can already identify it and know what chemical we need to use to kill it.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So when you're walking through a field, you're just looking for everything, every little detail in the ground.
Yep. Weeds, insects, diseases are the main concerns, and I'll write up a chemical recommendation of, we need to make a tank mix of this herbicide. Let's throw this insecticide in there, and tell them what tank mix they can use, and they'll put that in a sprayer and apply it, or have the co-op apply it, and be able to. In the long run, it'll make the farm most profitable. And sometimes at first I kind of struggle with that, because some of these tank mixes can cost $45 an acre, which the profit margins in agriculture are not all that great anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, we're finally getting some better prices, but you're having the confidence that, yes, this is going to cost you some money, but in the long run, it's going to make you more money. That's something I struggled with at first, but now I'm
So you have to sell that to the farmer a lot of times.
Yep.
Like it sounds crazy right now to spend this much money per acre on something, but in the end, I think you're gonna be happy with the long-term result.
Yep.
So you're also kind of a salesman in some way.
Well, yeah, and I don't sell any products.
You don't sell products.
No.
Just your services. Right?
I only do service. So they can buy that chemical from whoever they want to.
Okay, so you're not trying to push any products or promote anybody or anything either.
Nope, not at all. I'm unbiased. That's why a lot of guys like to hire guys like me, because we're unbiased. We're not going to promote, oh, you should only use this company's products.
Yeah. So where does your income come from then, overall?
Yeah. So for the service, we charge by the acre to the farmer.
So you'll charge by the. So if you're doing. What's a square mile? Is it 600 acres?
Square mile?
Yeah.
640 acres.
640, okay. So if you're doing 640, you're doing somebody's entire square mile, you're going to be charging them by the acre.
By the acre, yeah.
For your services.
That rarely happens that we have a whole square mile.
Well, yeah, just for simple terms,
Yep.
Okay, so, and that could be for anything. You could be just looking for bugs and telling them they need to spray for that, or it could be for weeds.
It's by the crop. So
by the crop.
Yep.
Do you charge more for different crops?
I charge more for irrigated because we have to be there every single week. The dry land, I don't have to be there quite as often, so I'm not charging as much for it.
Why do you have to be there every week with irrigated?
Irrigation scheduling.
Oh.
So there's some boring weeks on some crops that, like, all there is to do is make irrigation schedules. There's rarely any insects or diseases that you're gonna have to worry about. Some farmers like to sign up their dry land for full service, and that's fine. But for the most part, the irrigated's the full service, and then the dry land's a limited service.
How do you get yourself out there? Like, how does a farmer know to reach you?
So all of mine's been word of mouth.
Really?
So far, yeah.
So you just do a good job then, apparently.
Yeah.
And other farmers tell other farmers, and then they call you up?
Yeah. Well, so I started, when I was in college, I interned with a guy who started this business on his own. And after my internship, he didn't have any full-time employees, and he was getting busy enough. He was like, you want to come on full-time? And so I did. And then through there's been other farmers in the area that been calling, and since me and him are both working full-time together now, we have the ability to take on some more acres. So
it's just you two?
Us two, and then we have a summer intern.
And it's a legit LLC company that you guys have?
It's an incorporated.
Incorporated, yeah. Yep. Okay, that's cool. So are your plans to make that bigger, or do you guys just want to keep it two of you?
Yeah, time will tell on a lot of stuff. But
yeah.
I mean, I'd love to do it on my own eventually, but I need to build up some more acres and get some better experience under my belt, because the input costs on being a crop consultant aren't that expensive. You need a pickup, you need a four-wheeler, you need a soil probe, and a laptop. That's about it. So what's it's your knowledge that's going to keep you in business.
Okay. And most of it's word of mouth?
A lot of it has been, yeah. We're not advertising in the paper or anything like that.
Are there big companies that do the same job?
Yeah, there's some big consulting firms out there. Yeah.
And they do the same thing as you, and they just have a bunch of employees that work for the company?
Yep.
Have set hours and whatnot?
Yep, we're known as independent crop consultants. So.
And you want to stay that way?
Yes.
and your goal is to be on your own.
Eventually, yes.
What's a normal day like for a crop consultant?
So it's very seasonal job. So let's start right here. It's end of September right now. I'm finishing up looking at all the summer crops, and pretty soon guys are starting to harvest now. Pretty soon we'll have some wheat in the ground. So this is my favorite time of year. I'm catching a little bit of a break, but as soon as the wheat's in the ground, I'm checking the wheat. As soon as the combine's off that field, it's all about next season for us. We're pulling soil samples on that ground, and we're sending them to a lab. And the lab sends us the data back, and I'm using that data to make a fertilizer recommendation on how to grow the next crop. So we do that all winter long. A lot of the winter time too, we're meeting with seed companies and chemical companies, and they're telling us about their new products. I'm going to conferences, about soil health, how to improve the soil. About March time, it starts to warm up. We're looking at alfalfa and wheat again, and April, corn's going in, some of the beans are going in, and then May through August, pretty well, we're real busy looking at all the summer crops.
All summer long, you're swamped, probably, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of 15-hour work days.
15 hours.
Yeah, in that 4-month period,
and is this all?
If there's daylight, you're working.
Is this all on your own? Like you just physically can't get in all the work that you need to in 8 hours a day, so you just add on and add on?
Yeah, I mean, you can work as much as you want. It matters how many acres you contract, but if you really want to make a decent living, you're going to have to work that much during the summer.
But you could also scale it back if you didn't want to.
Yeah, if I wanted to work 8 hours a day during the summer, I could just contract less acres. But
right.
I mean, you're only working that much during the summer. Then in the wintertime, you'd be pretty bored, so you're not going to make a very good living.
So in the wintertime, you're just chilling.
Well, I mean, we're pulling it. I used to think wintertime was real easy, but now it seems like it's getting busier and busier every time. I'm pulling those soil samples, and I mean, I pulled soil samples when it's 30 degrees out, and I'm all bundled up on the four-wheeler, just freezing my ass off. But
yeah,
there's there's always a lot of meetings and conferences to go to as well. But the wintertime's a lot easier than the summertime.
Yeah. So you're just scheduling a lot of that on your own too when you're going to meetings or whatever.
Yep. I mean, it's your responsibility to get all your work done in a week. It doesn't matter how long it takes you to do it. You just got to get all your fields checked, all your samples pulled.
So when you start working with a farmer, are you signing a contract for a certain length of time to be with them?
Yeah, it's their yearly contracts.
Oh, yearly?
So,
okay.
Yep.
So some guy could be like, this guy's not doing a good job. You're done after a year.
Yeah, you could. Yeah.
But it's hard to tell because it's like what you're doing now, like you said, affects the long term. So it's hard to say if you're doing a good or bad job right away, right?
Yep.
And plus you have all these other factors involved with like weather and.
Yep. Weather is a big factor of our job. I'm always looking at my weather app on the phone.
Yeah.
To try to, predict what's going to happen here.
Right.
If it's too windy, if it's raining, you can't spray. Trying to make irrigation schedules around chances of rain.
And it's something you can't control. I mean, you can try to mitigate insects. You can try to increase your soil value or whatever, I guess, but you can't control the weather.
Yep.
And have you ever had that happen to you where like you're working with a farmer and things are going well and then weather just destroys his crops? And
oh yeah, I've had hailstorms come in and sweep a crop out. And
yeah,
there's.
Has anybody ever blamed you for their crops doing shitty?
No, I mean hailstorm. You can't do anything about.
No, not a hailstorm, but if it's just a drier year or a really wet year or whatever.
I don't think they can get grumpy with me, but I don't think it's they're not entirely blaming me. They're just mad.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's hard because every week I go to that farmer and I deliver him a report of all of his fields on how they're doing, and typically I'm not the bearer of good news.
Really?
So yeah, because I'm looking for the problems in the fields and how to fix them, and every time I make a chemical recommendation, that's going to cost them money, and oh boy, here's a crop consultant, he's wanting me to spend money on this and this, and
So did you go to school for all of this knowledge that you have? Like when you can see a plant or a weed and say that this certain chemical will affect that one specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Was that all taught to you in school, or did you learn that on your own?
A lot of it's taught in school, but there's a lot more you learn on the job. When I first started out, I almost thought I wasted 4 years of my life in school. But
really, what was your degree?
Agronomy.
Agronomy.
Yep. And
that's the degree to get if you're going to be a crop consultant.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So agronomy is just a fancy word for plant and soil science. Agronomy is a sub-study of botany, is what it is. So,
gotcha.
Like horticulture is more towards produce and your ornamental crops, forestry, trees. Agronomy is your grain and cereal fiber crops.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
What about marijuana?
Marijuana, I haven't worked with any of that. There is some talk about industrial hemp in Kansas now. So
I've heard that.
I have not worked with any hemp yet. I wouldn't be surprised if eventually down the line I did.
Did you learn about it in school at all?
No, they didn't teach anything about that in school. I don't know a whole lot about it. I know it's one of those high risk, high reward crops.
Yeah.
It's hard. The seed that people buy, it's like a 50% germination, meaning like every other seed you drop in that ground, only one of them's gonna come up.
Wow.
So yeah, usually it's like at least 80% to 99% on your germination rate. So it's very low on your germination rates, and there's a lot of paperwork involved in growing industrial hemp.
Right now, since it's like still federally illegal or whatever, so that's kind of a weird gray area. But at some point, I'm sure if it does get like federally legalized and everything, you're going to be dealing with it. You would think, right?
Oh yeah, I'm sure I'll, maybe down the line I'll be looking at some. But I'll cross that bridge when I get there.
Yep. At least for work.
Yep. So.
That's cool. What's the best crop you think to grow in the Midwest?
Best crop? I mean, a diversity of crops is the best.
Diversity is the best?
Do diversity.
Not just planting.
Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Not just planting the same crop time after time every year.
No, that's terrible for the soil.
Is it really?
Yeah.
That's called monocropping, right?
Well, monocropping is, you only have one crop at all in that field, which is typical. But yeah, you got to grow diversity of crops across all your fields because you don't know what the market's going to do.
Right. But why is it terrible to grow wheat in the same spot every year? Because
it's hard on the soil because you're only there's microbes in the soil that you're feeding with that crop and other microbes that will not work with that crop. So you're not feeding the whole soil biology that way, and the residue from your wheat is going to carry diseases over towards the next crop. So you really need to rotate your crops every year.
So it's best to have a bunch of crops, different ones, and move them around. So you're not doing wheat in the same spot every year. You're moving it over here.
Yeah.
Then you're moving this crop over to where the wheat was last year.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And that's typical then probably for farmers, right?
Yeah.
Most of them do
most
that.
Farmers know that. Yeah.
But they didn't used to, right? Like the Dust Bowl? Wasn't that caused from...
The Dust Bowl was caused from excessive tillage. So, I mean, we, came to the plains, we broke the plain open, and, the soil was super healthy then, and we're just growing super healthy crops, and, life was great. But, the Dust Bowl was a man-made catastrophe. And
it was just because they were tilling that top layer over and over again?
Yeah, because that soil will blow. Tillage is probably the worst thing you could ever do for the soil, because if you think about it, like there's more CO2 in the air today than there was before. There's less carbon in the soil today than there was before. Like through tillage, we have greatly degraded our soils over time, and it's just like when you till the soil, you release that CO2 into the air. It's just like when you open this beer. There's CO2 in this beer because it's carbonated. It's going from a higher concentration to a lower concentration. It's just natural for it.
Okay.
So we need carbon in the soils to feed the microbes, because carbon is the building block for all life, really. I mean, you and I are made up about 16% carbon.
Yeah.
And so the only way to feed those microbes is to have growing plants. So like in a tablespoon of topsoil, there's more living organisms than there are people in the United States.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and if you were to take over an acre area of all those microscopic organisms that you cannot see and weigh them, it'd be about 2,000 pounds. So think of this, like a football field is roughly 1 1/3 acres. So that's like 2.5 full-size cows on that football field. You already have that much livestock on that field that you cannot see, but you need to feed them. You got to feed them with growing crops or some kind of growing plant, and the only way that happens is you through photosynthesis. So like the equation of photosynthesis, that plant is breathing in CO2 and it's taking water from the roots, and it's using sunlight as an energy source to produce oxygen into the air and then sugars through the roots. Those sugars are feeding all those microorganisms that in exchange are getting nutrients for that crop. So that crop is always putting these sugars out, and there's chemical signals out there that it's saying, hey, I need more phosphorus, hey, I need more potassium. And those microorganisms are feeding this crop. It's a symbiotic relationship. So through tillage, we've been reducing our microbial populations in the soil. So then the plants don't have as many of these workers to get these nutrients to them. So we've been just adding more and more synthetic fertilizers out there, and it's just been exacerbating the problem.
That is amazing, especially how everything on planet Earth works together. The way it works together like that is just mind-blowing.
Yeah,
and
we need biodiversity.
What's crazy is that I think most people out there don't even realize that. And they think, oh, a farmer, what do? You just dig a hole in the dirt and put a plant in there, right? And then it grows food. How hard can that be? They don't understand or realize that it's a whole colony of organisms that are living in that soil, right?
Yeah.
That's making it up. Most people probably think, oh, you dig out a big scoop of soil and it's just dirt. There's nothing in there. It's just dirt, right?
Yeah, dirt is just misplaced soil.
Yeah. And in a way, it's like the microbiome in our gut, too,
They operate very similarly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because we have all these gut flora that help us and there's millions of them in there, and people don't realize that. They just think they have a body and we're a human. But that's crazy. I mean, and that's all stuff that you learned in school, too, right?
So school only taught me the physical and chemical properties of the soil. They did not teach much of the biological properties.
Okay.
So this is a lot of stuff I've been learning after college. And
well, that's cool. I mean, that's interesting stuff, I think it is anyways. Yep. What's one of the most beneficial bugs for the soil or organisms? Is there not
a diversity
of them? Yeah. I know people always said growing up, they taught us that worms are great for the soil.
Earthworms are awesome. Yeah. Because they're cycling, they're eating all these plant residues, we're breaking them down, and then the other microorganisms are eating their poop, essentially.
Yeah.
And breaking that down into nutrients that the plants use eventually. And earthworms are also creating pathways in the soil for rain to come down into. And
I was going to ask that, like all of their little tunnels that they put into the ground, that's probably good for it, right?
Yeah, and then when you till the soil, you just erase that.
So it's bad to till at all?
Tillage is one of the worst things you can do for the soil. I'm trying to minimize the amount of tillage that farmers are using.
It's necessary, though, for some crops, right?
It's not always necessary.
How do you plant if you don't till it?
You use a no-till planter.
What does that do?
It puts a seed in the ground without tilling it.
Does it like punch it into the ground?
Yeah. It's got little disc openers there, and you punch it in the ground. You don't, the reason, back in the Dust Bowl, everybody was tilling the ground. They didn't have the technology to put a seed into the ground without,
Nor did they probably know that tillage was bad.
Yeah. I mean, I was talking to one farmer. He said, if you think about it, in this area that we live, it's mostly German heritage. He says, and Germans were farmers, not ranchers. They saw that land and they broke up in the plow, and that's what they did.
Mm-hmm.
So the way I like to explain it to a lot of people is, we're in Kansas, so you think about the ground that we're sitting on right now. When was it the healthiest? It was back when it was a grassland with a diversity of plants. Yep, diversity of plants, a lot of grasses. There's some forbs growing out there, and the buffalo were grazing it. And they wouldn't just graze it down to the nub. They were constantly moving due to pressure from prey. We just need to recreate that through like cover crops. Have a diversity of plants out there that'll stimulate all the microbial activity in the soil, and you gradually move them across the field. Don't let them eat too much in one spot so that plant can recover. Take off like 50% of that plant and allow that plant to regrow. Because are
you talking about cattle grazing?
Yeah,
on a crop. Yeah.
Yeah, well, on a cover crop.
On a cover crop.
Yeah, in between say you have corn, then you plant a winter cover crop, and then you have your cattle on that throughout the winter time, and then you can kill off your cover crop, and then plant soybeans. But in that time, you're actually, instead of letting that soil just sit bare, you're having some kind of life out there to stimulate the microbial activity.
Yeah, that makes sense. And the cows are shitting on the soil too, and it's all kind of the circle of life, right?
Yeah. So 85% of the plant nutrients that goes in a cow's mouth come out the other end onto the soil, and they're broken down and available for plants to use. And
all the CO2 gases that come out with it, right?
Well, and plants capture CO2. So
that's true. They do, don't they?
Yeah.
There's a big deal with climate change right now. People are talking about the cattle farts and everything. I mean, I don't know how you really mitigate that. Is it their diet?
Well, just have more green-growing plants that'll capture that CO2.
Have more plants going.
There's a documentary on Netflix right now called Kiss the Ground. I don't agree with 100% of the movie, but they do a good job of showing, in April time, there's just a rush of CO2 into the atmosphere. And then in the summertime, the CO2 goes away. That's because the plants are growing.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Plants breathe CO2 basically, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they put out oxygen. We do the opposite. We breathe in oxygen, breathe out CO2. It's all an ecosystem.
It's all an ecosystem. It's crazy.
Yep.
Cows are just basically like steak machines, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it amazing how they can just eat grass and grow into a steak or a prime rib?
Yeah.
That sits on your plate.
Yeah.
I mean,
love steak.
Yeah. They must be extracting quite a bit of nutrients still, though, to just survive off eating grass, right?
Yeah, yeah.
They said like 85% of them come back out, but
85% of the plant available nutrients.
Oh, the plant available nutrients.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Come out into the ground.
So it's really good to keep cattle on soil in between having crops.
Yeah, have something green growing on your ground all the time, and have livestock on it is the goal.
Yeah, because when you're growing a crop, you can't have any other plants. You don't want any other plants growing in that soil, right?
Yeah. So those other weeds, a weed is a plant out of place. Weeds are going to rob moisture and nutrients.
It's competing with the other plants. Yeah. So when you're talking about tillage, are you talking about like a tractor disc if you're disking a field?
Yeah, exactly.
That's tilling, right?
Yep.
And that's still pretty common, at least from what I see. We live in a farming community. I see that all over the place.
Yep.
That's not a good thing?
Not a good thing.
Really? Does that make you cringe when you see it?
Yeah, a little bit. I wish guys would at least go to no-till or start putting some cover crops in to help heal their soil back.
So if there's one thing out there that you want all the farmers to know right now that they're doing wrong, it's probably tillage, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to point fingers, but
well, we don't want to point any fingers at anybody. We're just trying to help.
The occasional tillage is fine, but tilling every year is pretty bad for your soil. You're gradually going to degrade your soil that way. Like I said, when you think about when the soil is the healthiest is when it was a diverse grassland and the buffalo are grazing it. Our soil organic matter was about over 5%. Right now, on a lot of soil tests that I'm pulling, I'm getting between 1% and 2%. So organic matter is important. Organic matter is just broken down dead plant tissue, dead animals, everything breaks down, turns into dust eventually, right? So that's what organic matter is, and that's where microbial life is the richest. And you can store more water in there. If you do a 1% increase in your organic matter on your soil, you can hold almost another inch of rain in that soil. So when you're in a drought and your field has another inch of rain in it and the neighbor's field doesn't, I mean, you're gonna survive that drought you got a lot better chance to survive in that drought.
It's crazy to me how many little things like that you wouldn't even think about.
Yeah.
And it all goes into play when you're talking about a farmer improving his crop or improving his soil, I guess.
Yep.
Are there any wild animals that help a soil's quality or destroy it on that other hand? I mean, surely there's all sorts of wildlife that are running through and either destroying or helping out a little bit, maybe.
Sure. I don't think they're affecting it too much. I mean, a deer can go out and feed on your corn a little bit, and it's not affecting things too much.
One thing that I learned that still blows my mind is that the amount of animals that die due to harvesting crops, like just wild ones all around, little rabbits running around or little skunks running through the field. And it always kind of makes me laugh a little bit with like people that are vegetarians or animal activists, because one cow can feed a family for over a year, right? If you just keep it in your freezer and you just eat off of it, that's what we do. And that's just one life. But if you're harvesting a whole crop, you're probably killing tons of small animals, right? That's what I've heard anyways.
I don't think you do. Maybe you run over a couple of mice or so, but I think they move out of the way. I've been in the combine and seen rabbits run and mice run away, but
I don't know. I just read that. I don't know if that's true. And I've heard people talk about that you're killing a ton of wildlife just by harvesting a crop.
I don't think you're killing a ton.
You don't think so?
No.
Well, we'll say they are, though, just so that we can convince people to eat prime ribs with us.
Yeah.
That's interesting stuff, man. What about the dreaded word GMO?
GMO.
Or dreaded acronym, I should say.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, people are all worried, GMOs are bad for you and you should eat organic. And really what it is what quality of the soil is your crop grown on? Like, so you need GMOs for a lot of your degraded soils, especially for your degraded soils, because you're not going to have the protection that you would have with a healthy soil. So, I mean, you can have a better quality food from an organic crop because of the quality of the soil it's grown on, but it's not a guarantee. Like when I go grocery shopping, I don't buy organic. I think it's more money for food that's not guaranteed to be more healthy for me. So like you can take organic seed and put it on a degraded soil, and it's going to be terrible quality. It's going to be full of bugs. You're not going to want to eat it. You can put a GMO seed on a really healthy soil, and it'll be very good quality. So a lot of the reason some of these soils have been degraded also is, I'd say glyphosate is, Roundup is what it is. And I'm not going to talk too much trash on glyphosate because it does a lot of good things for me, but there are also some bad things about it, and I think there's a lot of confusion about it. So glyphosate was originally designed as a cleaning product, like a pipe cleaner, chimney cleaner is what it was supposed to do. So, and as that, it binds to heavy metals like magnesium and zinc and copper, all essential nutrients for plants. So chronic use over a long period of time of using glyphosate, because we have GMOs that are resistant to glyphosate, we've been using a lot of it, has tied up those nutrients in that soil, and that plant cannot access it near as well. So it is not as nutrient dense as it would be on a healthy soil. So,
and not to mention, there's a lot of health effects that come from using Roundup too, right? If you come in contact with it, or if you're buying produce with it on there.
So there's a lot of confusion there. So
is that
the acute toxicity of glyphosate is very small. So caffeine is 40 times more toxic than glyphosate. And a lot of people drink coffee every morning, and they're not worried about that
toxic.
At all. The acute toxicity, like if you were to intake it on your skin and in your mouth.
So all that talk about Roundup causing cancer and being harmful to humans is a bunch of bullshit?
So there's some studies that show some correlation that people that are around it, chronic use over a long period of time, have been having cancer. Now, if you, the idea of if you buy Roundup at Lowe's to do some touch up on your landscape and in your yard and in your driveway, the fact that people are scared of that is ridiculous to me, because it's not that much exposure.
So you're a believer in it's not that harmful. It's not that bad for you.
Chronic use over a long period of time, you might have some problems. You may have some problems.
So it's like smoking. But you smoke for a long time, large amounts, you might have a chance of getting cancer.
Yeah, but like secondhand smoke, every now and then, you're not worried about getting cancer down the line. Just like if you're using glyphosate to touch up your landscaping, you shouldn't be worried.
There's probably a small risk, but not enough to be so scared about that you don't want to go spray weeds in your yard, right?
Yeah. Well, and you talk about smoking, like nicotine is 1,600 times more toxic than glyphosate.
So is glyphosate the generic term for like Roundup? Is it the same
Roundup
thing?
is the trade name. Glyphosate is the active ingredient.
It's the active ingredient, and that's the only active ingredient in it? Or are there other things?
Yeah, that's what Roundup is. It's been trademarked in several other names too. But Roundup is what Monsanto marketed it as, and they were the first company to market it.
Gotcha.
But yeah, there's been all sorts of other companies that have put their own name to it.
Are there other chemicals that you guys work with or recommend that can be harmful to humans, or?
Sure. Yeah. There's some insecticides that, I'll recommend that chemical for the farmer to spray, and I know if they sprayed it, within 12 hours before I walk it, I'm not going to walk that field.
Yeah.
Because it's harmful for me to walk through there. So I usually skip that field that week or check it a couple of days later.
So when you see somebody or like a crop duster flying the plane around spraying fields, that could be a multitude of different things. It's not usually just Roundup or something in there.
Crop dusters rarely ever do Roundup.
They rarely ever do Roundup?
Yeah, crop dusters are mostly fungicide on corn, because you can't drive a sprayer through there, or insecticide on corn. Yep.
So, like with GMOs too, going back to that conversation a little bit, a lot of those plants are genetically modified to prevent insects from eating them, right?
Right, yeah.
How does that work?
Yeah, so I don't know if you heard the term BT corn.
BTK, I've heard of that.
No, let's not go that down that hole.
Maybe that's where he got his name.
BT corn is it stands for Bacillus thuringiensis.
BT corn.
Yeah.
I don't know why I find that funny. I don't know why I find that funny. Anyways, sorry.
Yeah. So BT corn has Bacillus thuringiensis protein in it. And that corn would naturally not have that protein in it without it being a GMO.
Being modified.
Yeah. So Bacillus thuringiensis, it when an insect eats it in a Lepidoptera family, like your caterpillars, worms, those kind of critters, when they eat that, there's a reaction that happens in their alkaline midguts that the reaction happens and it leaks out the pores in their cells that cause them to swell and explode, and then those fragments serve as a medium for a blood infection. Those insects die of a blood infection when they eat that corn.
And they explode.
They don't explode. Their cells explode inside them, but they just die. So, yeah, telling you that, you're like, oh shit, I don't want to eat that. But it simply doesn't happen to us because we do not have alkaline midguts. No reaction takes place. Our body knows no difference.
So, okay, but that's crazy. So it tortures the insect then, basically.
Well, it kills the insect because they're bad insects. You don't want them there.
No wonder they call it BT corn.
You don't want little worms in your ears of corn, do you?
No, I don't.
No.
And before GMOs, that's how it was, probably, right?
Yeah, and there's corn falling over from European corn borers that would crawl up the stalk and hollow it out, and then the corn would fall over real easy, and then farmers couldn't harvest it.
So BT corn is the name of that one that's genetically modified?
That's one of the genes, and
yeah,
a lot of the corn that we grow now.
That's amazing. I think you guys named that after BTK.
No.
Yeah, like you're killing mass amounts of insects, and you're thinking of serial killer names for them, which I think is clever. We'll call this one BT corn. We'll call this one the unicorner, or Yeah. All right. I'm done with that. That's hilarious, though. I mean, people take for granted, honestly, that they can open an ear of corn now, and it's just a perfect little yellow thing that looks amazing, right? Yep. You could take a picture of it, and it could be on a billboard. People take that for granted because without GMOs, and I'm not on, I don't have an opinion on GMOs because I don't know myself. I know people like you think they're great. There's also people out there that think they're harmful, whatever. But I know for a fact that you don't want to open up an ear of corn, like you said, with worms all over it.
Yeah, you're not going to want to eat that.
No.
And, I would eventually love to wean ourselves off of GMOs because organic seed is way cheaper. So going back to...
Really?
Yeah, going back to, cover crops, it's called regenerative agriculture. You're regenerating the soil. You have all these cover crops growing out there. You're making the soil healthier. And the quality, if you can have a regenerative system, you can eventually afford to use organic seed that you don't need all those protection from. Because a lot of these degraded soils, like corn, is more apt to get these diseases. Where on a healthy soil, the crop is not apt to get some of these diseases. So, like I said, like the quality of your food comes from the quality of the soil that you're eating, or the quality of the soil that your food is grown on. Healthy soil makes healthy food. So that's why organic and GMO doesn't make a difference to me at the grocery store. I want to know what kind of soil it was grown on.
And if you are growing something that's truly organic, do you have to use way more pesticides and herbicides on that?
You can't. So you can grow. A farmer right now on a degraded soil can say, I just want to go organic, and it would be a train wreck.
Really?
Because, it would be full of diseases. The soil wouldn't have the ability to put as many nutrients to that plant. It would not work well. But some of these organic farms, since they haven't been doing these synthetic fertilizers and these chemicals, their soil is naturally more healthy, and then they've been able to grow some healthier crops. But it's not a guarantee. I've seen some, like I said, ears of corn of non-GMO corn that are just terrible quality. There's worms crawling all over it.
Yeah, and they look a lot different too when they're not GMOs, right? They don't look completely uniform like a normal sweet ear of corn would.
I don't know about that.
They look smaller. Like from what I've seen, if you just buy like non-GMO, like heirloom seeds, right? You're gonna get some crazy looking corn. Maybe it's just different breeds of corn where you get like the blue kernels or the red kernels in there. Have you seen any of that stuff?
Well, that's like Indian corn, isn't it?
Yeah, but I don't know the difference really myself. Like, I don't know if that's just straight like heirloom, like original corn, how it was.
No, all that seed, if you buy organic seed, all that seed has the same exact genetics. It should look tabletop across the field.
So when you see like a field full of corn and every single stalk looks identical, just a complete uniform crop, is that because of GMOs, or is that the way it is naturally anyways? Like if you went back 300 years and saw a field of corn, would it look different?
Probably, yeah. And, well, corn nowadays, that corn plant has male and female parts on that same plant. So, teosinte is the original name for corn. And, the ears actually came out at the top of the plant, not at the bottom. So,
oh, really?
Yeah, they're going to look way different.
The ears came out at the top.
Yeah.
So back in 300 years ago, if you saw a crop of corn, the ears would have been on the top of the...
Yeah, some of them would be, yeah.
Wow. Is there a reason that they modified them that way?
Yeah, so the plant has male and female parts on it, so it can pollinate
What's the purpose?
itself.
Oh, okay. I see. So does the male and the female plant in nature look different? Is one taller than the other?
I've never seen them.
You've never seen them?
They're not around.
Really? That's kind of crazy. Do you have any crazy stories on the job since you've been doing this? Have you had any weird encounters or anything?
Oh, when I'm working earlier in the summer, the crops were really short, and I always keep a four-wheeler in the bed of my truck to just drive a four-wheeler over the field when I'm looking for weeds. And I had a sheriff pull me over for going 72 and 55 on a blacktop.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
So when you get to a field, you just take your 4-wheeler out a lot of the times and just cruise around.
Yeah, like I'll find an area that I have like 3 fields here, so I'll just find a place to park and drop the bike and go check all those fields, and I get back to the truck and I type up a report and move on. So a lot of the times during the summer, it's drive, walk, or drive the 4-wheeler over it and type up a report, repeat the process. So,
have you ever ran into any crop circles?
No, no.
Damn, thought I'd ask. It's one of those things.
I've seen some weird stuff I can't explain, but
like what?
Like why are all these plants dead right here? And I don't know why.
It'll just be a group of dead plants, like in a circle.
Yeah, I'm like, what's going on in that
crop
soil?
Circle?
No.
Is there anything else crazy you couldn't explain that you've seen? Have you ever seen aliens?
No.
It's worth asking, man.
Have not.
Nobody really talks about crop circles anymore,
No.
But then again, why would aliens come all the way to Earth and just make a design in your field,
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't either.
Never seen one.
I don't either. So, do you think over time, like looking out into the future, is there a point in time where we're going to degrade everything so much that it's not usable?
Yeah,
it's inevitable.
So that's why soil health has been a big trend in the agronomy world right now, because they're predicting, if we keep going like this, our soils will eventually be completely unproductive, and we can't grow any plants on it.
Do you think it's possible to save it?
Yeah, I think it's possible to save it, but we need to start using more cover crops and incorporating livestock into the fields to help heal that soil.
We need more people like you out there telling people what they're doing wrong.
Yeah.
Hey, quit disking that field.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, there's some predictions like 60 years, 80 years, 100 years. I've heard all sorts of numbers, but that time from now that some of these soils will be completely unproductive.
Nobody really knows though, right?
Yeah. So my goal is, through regenerative agriculture, you can help heal that soil, increase your microbial populations, and those microbes will help feed that plant more nutrients, and you can eventually wean yourself off of synthetic fertilizers to lower your input costs. I mean, I love that it's better for the environment, better for the world, but also, I mean, if we can reduce our input costs on these fields, I think that's great, because it's all about, for me, making that farmer as profitable as possible. Like if I have a farmer that breaks a yield record or wins a yield contest, I'd be real proud for him, no doubt. Like, in fact, I have had a farmer win a yield contest.
Really?
And I was happy for him, but I don't know, with all the input costs he put into it, is that the most profitable field? Like, when you pencil it out, is that the best? It's all about ROI for me, return on investment.
Mm-hmm. Because if you wanted to have the most or the highest yield in a crop in the state, right? Yeah. You could just do some crazy shit and spend a bunch of money to have that end result.
Yeah, and I can already do that. Like, as an agronomist, I can be out there, let's doctor this field up and, put all these new fertilizer and all these chemicals on it and just drive up the input costs. And they might have a great crop at the end of the year, but it might not be the most profitable. So,
is it worth it? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm typically pretty conservative on the recommendations I make. Like, if I ask a farmer to spray something, I'm usually pretty confident it's going to make them money in the long run.
That's very cool, man. I think your position is awesome, honestly.
Yeah.
Like,
thank you.
I didn't even really know it existed until you told me about it.
Yeah.
I don't think most people know it exists. I think people just think farmers are out there, like I said, dropping a plant in a hole and they grow food and that's it.
Yeah, and not all farmers use crop consultants. So we're far and few between, because you're covering so much area. So
it's all beneficial for everything, though, right? What you're doing, even though ROI, return on investment, is your main goal, right? Mm-hmm. Everything that you're doing is the end result is beneficial to the soil, to the environment.
Yep.
I mean, it's all better for the world.
Yep. If I can make the world better and help the farmers make more money, that's
And that's amazing, man.
goal.
Cheers to you, man.
Yep. Thank you.
That is a very cool job you got there. If somebody wanted to get into your position, what kind of advice would you give them?
Yep. So, like, if you're in high school, get involved in your FFA program if your high school has one. If your high school doesn't have one, try working for.
Can you explain what that is for people that don't know?
Future Farmers America. I mean, my high school didn't even have one, so I didn't do it.
A lot of them might not even have it.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're not from a farm and you have an interest in doing it, go work for a farmer one summer when you're in high school, and see if that's a world you want to be in.
Yeah, just buck hay bales all summer long.
Yeah, well, if you can put up with that, you'll be able to put up with consulting. I mean, we work long hours, but it's just a lot of walking. We walk several miles a day. We're in the heat, but
it's good exercise.
Yeah, built-in fitness program.
There you go, built-in gym.
Yeah,
I think it's cool because there's a lot of people out there, and I've said this on a previous podcast, that would love to be in the ag world, but they can't get into farming just because they don't have land they were inherited. They don't have the money to get started. Farming is an expensive thing to get into.
Yeah.
Farmers
are the poorest millionaires out there.
Exactly. Yeah. They're usually loaded, but it's all tied up in their equipment.
They're worth a lot, but the input costs and everything. Yep.
And so it's cool to hear people like you come and talk about positions that you have, because if somebody, like I said, wanted to get into the ag world, most of them just think, I can't be a farmer, so I'm not going to do that. But there's crop consultants, there's other things out there too that are similar to what you do, and it's super cool. Does it require a degree for everybody?
Yeah, if you want to be a crop consultant, you pretty well have to have an agronomy degree, or some kind of degree in agriculture.
Like, are farmers checking your credentials and stuff, or maybe not even farmers, but companies? Or could somebody just go out there and decide, I want to start being a crop consultant, and good luck, I guess. But if you have no experience,
you got to find the acres to do it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, farmers look for some credentials. Like, I'm a CCA, certified crop advisor, which you do not have to be a crop consultant. It's not a requirement. I took the exam when I was in college, and I had to have a farmer and a previous employer write a letter of recommendation to get me through that board, and then I was able to get approved.
So it's just something extra to kind of add to your credential list.
Yeah.
Show that you're out there.
Is this something to show that I know what I'm doing, because I was young, and it was something to help boost my
so definitely go the degree route if you're going to do it. And I guess you've never actually worked for a big company doing it, have you? You've always kind of been solo?
Yeah, I work for somebody who's self-employed.
Yeah.
So it's a company of 2 full-timers.
It'd be interesting to hear
1 intern.
It'd be interesting to hear how people's experience is that does work for a big company that's a crop consultant company,
Oh, I know several guys that are.
You do?
But, yeah.
Is it similar to what you're doing?
I mean, their work day is very similar.
Yeah.
Yeah. They have that, network among all their fellow employees, but that's why the independent crop consultants have a organization called KICC, Kansas Association of Independent Crop Consultants. So we all have a big meeting every year. We have all the chemical and seed companies come meet us, and that way we can all get our updates through them that way.
Very cool, man. I think what you do is super interesting, honestly.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm loving listening to this right now. I just don't even know. I never knew that this whole thing existed, and that there's so much more to it than people realize.
Yep.
You have any last words you want to say about what you do or anything?
If you're interested in doing this, get involved in your FFA, and go work for a farmer and see if that's the kind of atmosphere you want to be in. So.
And realize that you don't have to just be a farmer to work in agriculture.
Yep. Yeah. If you love science, if you like working outside all day, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to do it too. I didn't want to be sitting behind a desk all day.
Yeah, your office is on a 4-wheeler in a field every day, right?
Yeah. Yeah, my pickup's my office.
Yeah.
It's a crew cab pickup, but it only seats one person, because I got so much junk in there with files and a printer and computers and all that stuff.
Right. And you can kind of set your own hours if you're doing it.
As long as you're getting all your work done in a week, you're yeah.
So that's kind of an appealing aspect to it for some people, probably, is that you don't have to punch in at 8 o'clock and punch out at 4 o'clock every day, right?
No. Well, during the summer, I'm punching in at 7 o'clock and punching out at 9:30 at night.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. So it's feast or famine.
Yeah.
No pun intended, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Do you want people to find you on any social media or anything? Do you have any last shout outs you want to say? Or?
I'm not much of a social media guy.
No?
I don't have Instagram or Twitter, none of that.
Just leave me in my
field. It's hard to find me on Facebook because I delete the app all the time. But
just leave me alone.
Snapchat. Yeah, can we put my Snapchat in the description? We can do that.
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll put it in the description.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Any farmers listen to it, snap me, send me. I've friends that are farmers that I don't work for, but they send me pictures of their soybeans or something, like, hey, what's going on here? And I'll answer it. Yeah, people can do that.
Cool. Yeah, we'll put your Snapchat in the description. That way, if a farmer wants to come reach out to you after the podcast,
yeah,
it'll be there. Cool. Cheers, sir. Thanks for the talk today. Thanks for
thank you
giving me all the insight on that. And spotted cow.
Yep, spotted cow.
Cheers.
Thank you.